And we're live, brother. How you doing, man?
Hey, pretty good, man. We got us a special guest on here tonight, Stephen Ngati from Fanatic Perspective. I know majority of the people listening to us tonight, we definitely didn't need to explain who he was. I want to make sure I turn off my computer over here, man. I got a quick question for you, Stephen. Man, you've been around for a long time, YouTube content creator for a long time.
Yes, sir.
Probably the longest tenured for the University of Texas, football program in other sports. Most typical thing you've had to deal with, man, as a content creator.
So thank you guys for having me on tonight. By the way, Lockerbie brothers, it is a wonderful honor, by the way, as a content creator, not having to run and do the host duties like you two have to do. So it's wonderful just to come on and, talk and visit with my buddies. But to your question about just the difficulties and not the journey, I should say, as a content creator, is you don't know what you don't know. And I was just a passionate fan. I have no background in video making, editing, all of the socials of really driving attention to a YouTube channel, understanding the platform. I had no concept of how to do that. And it was a lot of figuring out as I went along and trial and error. So, and then the other thing too, is like my channel is based around my fandom. And my fandom, when you have a team, and in my case, multiple teams, because I was going through hard ups and downs with the Longhorns on Saturday, and then I would turn around on Sunday and do it again with the Cowboys, right? And so it was a lot of emotional trauma that people get to witness, where in the real world, you would just go away or have a beer or whatever you do to kind of de-stress. But with YouTube, people get to see my reactions real time. I know it's the off season right now, so we're all very mild mannered and everything's cool. But as people saw you guys at the end of last season when we lost Iowa State, y'all were upset fans. I was an upset fan after OU. So just that passion, it's great, but it's also tough to come on and talk when sometimes you don't want to talk.
Wow, that's crazy.
Absolutely.
So my biggest thing is I gotta kind of tell you kind of where I sit at, man. I can tell you that me and Jeremy were both stationed in Korea, in I think 2018, man. And I can tell you, and I kind of told this to you yesterday, it was hard to get content over there. You only got so many. You only got a few channels now. You can get in there and probably get direct TV, so you can watch the games at Sunday morning, 3:00, whatever the case may be. But I can tell you from a guy that I fed off everything that you did do, Steve, and that's real talk, man. You're the one, you and RJ Young and all these other content creators that were feeding this information is how I can tell you that me and Jeremy were getting information where we were at. So I definitely want to thank you for that, man. You were putting out 3-4 shows, you and Tran doing your thing, and I can tell you we appreciate that from the bottom of our hearts, man. Seriously.
Yeah.
So, I tell you, it's
network
awesome.
doesn't have a whole lot to offer.
Yeah.
Like I told you yesterday, Stephen, they get maybe 2 games on Sunday, a game or 2 on Saturday, and then it's what I do to fill my time as a Longhorn fan, as a Cowboy fan. It's like we share that passion as well to get me through to next Saturday, because I don't have game days, I don't have NFL Lives to watch. I have to watch you and Trey and, like you said, RJ, to get the latest and greatest Texas news and insight.
Man,
yeah, go ahead, Steve.
Clint, I told you I'd hold it together, and this is kind of where I got a little emotional yesterday when we were talking. But in all seriousness, first and foremost, thank you guys for your service and just serving our country and just the turbulent times we've all been in, last year and being away from your families and whatnot. That means a lot to me, and I want y'all to know that. And I really, really, really mean that when you say that, because Tran and I, we just thought us two visiting as best friends, people could feel that. And we never realized we were being informative. And so hearing that from you guys, I want to give a shout out to our friend Richard Corrigan, who is over there in Korea right now and stationed there and watching at videos at 4:30 in the morning and 5:30 in the morning. That stuff does not go unnoticed. So I just thank you guys. And I'm so excited to talk ball tonight. I'm not going to get emotional. I know where the love is coming from, and I'm excited to talk ball. So
absolutely, man. So I got to give a shout out to Cody Phillips here, man, paying my general. He said he's paying this general admission because this collab shouldn't be free. All right. And again, that's what we do. Hook 'em, man. Biggest thing, man, we appreciate Cody Phillips. He's our stats guy here on Texas Football Talk, and he'll be back throughout the year, man. He's the one who was feeding our stats, all the way through that season, which is hard. Like you were talking about earlier, Steve, and we'll get into really recruiting and expectations. I think we wanted to talk about expectations, maybe expectations management, really, in both recruiting and season. I think we'll talk a little bit about that tonight. But really getting back to your point about the ups and downs, the ebb and flows that you kind of deal with on Saturdays, man, I can tell you there were days that I think after the TCU loss, Steven, I didn't want to get on. I don't even think I wanted to get on. It's like Jeremy's like, let's get on. I was like, time out. I cannot do this because my fandom is at all-time high. That was rough. You had a thought, Jeremy, on that?
No, exactly. He quit on me like 2 or 3 times last year. And I was like, hey, man, we decided to do this. Because, again, you were the only guys out there. And I felt like you guys were doing a fantastic job. But I felt like that we could do a fantastic job. Because it's conversations that we've had for the last 20, 30 years.
Absolutely.
On the telephone every Saturday afternoon. And I wanted to give people insight. But, yeah, he quit on me about 2 or 3 times last year and had to walk him back off the ledge. But he is fantastic. You can tell that as well. Like I call him the play-by-play guy, and I'm the commentary guy. But he does a brilliant job as well, and we just enjoy doing it. Like you said, TCU was tough. Texas Tech having to come back was tough. Red River Showdown was tough, and then losing the game to Iowa State. And we'll talk about that. Like when we talk about season expectations, you gotta win the ones you're supposed to win, right? Sidebar.
Yeah. Tran and I. So we're blessed enough to be able to get, season tickets, and Tran's great with networking and all that. And we were at the West Virginia game. This is when we started going like every home game. And it was the Will Greer when he ran it in, and it was 42-41, and we lost. We made our video, we made a reaction video in his Tran's Jeep. And we were stuck in the parking garage. So it was like one of those things where you're already upset about the team losing the game. You didn't think they would lose. At that point, I thought we could beat West Virginia. You're upset about the parking situation because parking situations are always 1,000 times worse after a loss. And then you have like these West Virginia fans just having the time of their lives. You could tell it was like their lifetime trip to come to Austin, Texas. It was like the sum of all fears right there. So I understand where you guys are at 1,000%.
Oh, it was rough. It's rough. All right, let's push that to got some good news today. Obviously, 2 bits of good news. One being a commitment from Austin Jordan, a safety / cornerback. I think do it all secondary guy from Denton Ryan High School there in Denton, Texas. Number 10 safety is what 247 currently has, Matt. I think it's a surprise commitment, man. I think he was supposed to, leaning Oklahoma for the last, 6-7 months. I think he had all of his crystal balls were to Oklahoma. So I think that's a big pickup from Texas from a recruitment standpoint. I'll let you go, Steve. I'll let you go first, Steve, man, and give us your thoughts on this recruitment.
I mean, anytime you get a surprise one like that, and I dropped a video about recruiting and all the anxieties that people are having today that we filmed yesterday, and even myself, I didn't necessarily anticipate that he would pick Texas. I know that a lot of the insiders had been mentioning on their sites, hey, the momentum is kind of flipping. There's some things we're hearing behind the scenes, blah, blah, blah. But, this is fantastic. I believe in the composite rankings on 247, we now move up past Oklahoma to 5. Yes. So, getting that momentum, selling the program again, getting somebody like that on board from Denton Ryan. Jatavian Sanders is here. Hopefully we can talk about him a little bit later on the show. But starting to stack guys together, I mentioned in the video too, same high schools where you have some of these powerhouse high schools like a Allen or a Denton Ryan or a North Shore or Duncanville. Those are the type of players that you turn around, Jatavian Sanders, or, later on we'll talk about some of the other guys like a Denver Harris or Harold Perkins, where it's like, dude, those are the type of people that can take us to the playoffs. So I'm not saying that for Austin Jordan, putting all those expectations on him, but I'm excited to have a hybrid piece in our defensive backfield. Really, really excited, guys.
Because again, like you said, Steve, Stephen, Jatavian Sanders, 21 class. You got this young man out of 22 class. You got Anthony Hill, the linebacker, out of the 23 class. Continue delegatories or in that coaching staff, former alumni and ball players at the University of Texas.
Yep.
Keep building upon that Denton Ryan, because they're not going to stop producing athletes at Denton Ryan. They're not going to stop producing athletes at Glen Park North Shore. They're not going to stop producing athletes at Duncanville, just like you just said. Where I go is his position versatility. You got guys like Brian Allen Jr. who are currently in the class out of Alito. You got, Jalen Gilbo who's committed to the class. And then you could have Bryce Anderson and Denver Harris. We've talked about our love for Denver Harris and Bryce Anderson on the show many, many times. But this has the potential to be if you make things work out and you're able to close the ones that are looking at you and able to steal picks like this kid, could be that 2018 class all over again. Just my thoughts.
Yeah, I think you're right when it comes to the 2018 class, but you hope that there's a little bit, and this is not a shot at the 2018 class, but if we're realistic, they didn't actually do what we thought they were going to do in that 2018 class. You're talking about Caden Stearns, BJ Foster, Barbie Novashone, and the list goes on and on and on. Some of those guys, all went off to the NFL. Some guys, are now playing at Mississippi State, and still some guys are still on the team. But I think development was an issue. Development or scheme may be an issue with that 2018 class, but it's what do you do with your classes moving forward? And Steve really, Steven hit the nail on the head, man, when he's talking about, in this video that I was listening to before I came on here about expectations. I think as a Longhorn fan base, we expect, but the product doesn't, the product you haven't seen the product yet. You can't continue to sell, and you can add to this, Steven, you can't continue to sell the same old product to class after class after class and think that these guys are going to continuously come. Your thoughts on that, Stephen, man?
Absolutely. Look, people, you guys are mentioning the 2018 class. So if you're BJ Foster, let's use him as an example. How many defensive coordinators has he now had at his time at
3 years?
3 and 3 years.
3 years. Yep.
That's not a BJ Foster problem.
Mm-hmm.
Nope.
That's not. No, nobody should be asked. When I'm coming to a school, I'm expecting. I understand turnover happens. All young men, by the way, high school kids that are out there listening to us. This is in the real world, corporate America. Turnover happens, attrition happens. You can't be surprised by that. But at the same token, 3 defensive coordinators, 3 people that you're talking about safeties coaches, people that are long gone that said come to Texas. And in that same ilk, you have other schools that were also after your services where there's staff continuity across the board. So that's what I'm talking about, managing expectations and establishing that continuity in your culture with Steve Sarkisian and Pete Kwiatkowski. That's why I think it was a strategic play for Kwiatkowski, not just for how good he is, but the fact that he's not, apparently he's not aspiring to necessarily be the next great head coach, right? So he's gone after 1 year. Like, we need that continuity so guys can come in and let's say we get a Bryce Anderson. He's playing the same position the entire time. He doesn't come here and then the new guy comes in because the old guy couldn't coach. And then we're like, oh yeah, go play, boundary safety instead, or we're going to move you to nickel corner, or Chris Adamora. We want you to gain 20 pounds, but then we want to move you here and we want you to lose 20 pounds. Like they're messing with people's body comps, their NFL stuff, their money. So establishing continuity, and that comes with, what are your expectations as we're watching as fans? That is essential to all of this, in my opinion.
That is totally correct. Scheme fit, right? So like you said, Todd Orlando saw a different thing than the next DC, and then now PK. They moved Marvin Overshawn from safety down to linebacker and asked him to do this, and we thought they were going to put weight on BJ Foster, but they didn't. They asked him to lose 30 pounds and find himself in the slot. Like you said, with every coach came a different philosophy and a different skill set for another kid. And you hit the nail on the head, I think, with your video last night. And I don't think Coach Sarkisian is getting the same first-year bump that Tom Herman did, because 2018 was Tom Herman's first class as well. He's not going to get that same kind of, love, hey, I can turn it over with, like you said last night, without proven results. But it's interesting, though. You got another 200, grade kid, the top 200 athlete in the class. Happy about that. Like you said, results are going to breed commitments. They're going to breed success, and that's when we'll start talking about, our season expectations, getting better, snap to snap, possession to possession, quarter to quarter, half to half, game to game, and then throughout the season.
I think the biggest thing right now is that, and we go back to really Jaleel Skinner, who's the number 1 tight end in the nation, according to 247. And if you look at the guys that we're competing against for his services, Alabama, Florida State, Miami, and Clemson. To me, I think where the biggest piece is right now is you want to compete with those big schools for these players. That's it. And eventually, when you start winning those games, when we'll talk about expectation and expectation management, moving on to the show, once you start winning those games, those guys will stop thinking about going out of state. And then you're back to, I won't ever say we get back to those Mac Brown years where you have a recruiting class sewed up, a month after the last signing day, you know what I'm saying? Which was crazy. You've signed 25 guys by April. I don't think you'll ever get to that point because I think
spots are full.
Yeah. But I think what happens now is it just like they are right now with these recruiting boards, these crystal balls, can't nobody figure out where these guys are going. I think they want to play the game. They're not telling anybody where they want to go. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, we're going to Oklahoma. And then all of a sudden I'm going to Texas, or everybody thinks he's somebody was going to Oregon last week and or going to Texas A&M or Texas. And now all of a sudden he's in Oregon as a 5-star player at Texas. So
guys, I think these kids want to stay home. I think a lot of them want to stay home. I'm not saying everybody, because we have to understand, and those of you who are recruiting nuts understand this better than I even do. Every recruit, everybody's want list or priority list is very, very different. However, I think location is important to a lot of these kids, and they do want to stay in the state of Texas. When you see Hudson, when he commits to SMU, he said what? And I think he was from another kid from Garland. I'm staying home. I want to stay home. The thing is, when you hear people going out of state, they say what? It's a business decision. I love you look at Princely. Princely's like, I grew up a Texas fan. I have a Texas thing, just like he has one. He is like, I have one in my room. I want them to be good, but I got to go to Florida for my own best interest. That's the predicament a lot of these kids are in, where it's like, I want to be close to my family. I don't want to have to, be flying to Columbus, Ohio, and all this type of stuff. Like, I think, but they got to have a product to go to. And that's what we see with product launch in the fall.
Yeah, I think we're going back to what you talked about, Pete Kwiatkowski, Stephen, is he's not a guy that's trying to go on to be a head coach. He would have done that a long time ago. He stayed on up in the Northwest for a long time on the Pacific, Pacific Coast up there, going from team to team to team, as a defensive coordinator and then a co-defensive coordinator. And for Steve to get him to come to Texas after he'd spent all that time out there in the Pac-12 was big. Because he's not trying to pick up his bags and go to the next destination. Right. What I think he's trying to do is he's trying to prove to himself that he's as good as defensive coordinator he was at the Pac-12, which is, to me, I'm getting chills just thinking about it. That's big time for me. Because you've been coaching for how long? 30 years, and you still feel like you have something to prove, and you're coming to the perennial probably offensive conference to do it. To me, that means a lot. Go ahead, Jeremy.
No, exactly, because PK has had those athletes at Washington. I think he thinks he could take a better athlete, a Texas athlete, a California athlete, and make them a top-ranked defense. Guys like Jeff Chubb was a head coach at another university. It was a smaller affiliation, but he wants to come here and prove himself at the top of the echelon. Bo Davis came back to the University of Texas to prove a point. I think all these guys have a whole lot of skin in the game to bring Texas back. And it also brings chills to me to think about what they can become. Because, like you say, you start producing on the field in the fall. Everybody wants to stay home, just like you said, Stephen. They start staying home. Then I think you can produce, maybe not as fast, but those top quality classes that Mac Brown was able to bring in his early tenure at the University of Texas. Just my thoughts.
Absolutely. What's good, Homer?
Yeah, so Texas Homer, PK is such a dope coordinator. Yeah, definitely. If you haven't had an opportunity to go watch that video from Texas Homer about Pete Kwiatkowski and his defense, definitely go check that out. And I have a nice another comment up here. Biggest collapse since DC Marvel crossover in 2000. Hey, we'll take it when we can get it, man.
That's high praise.
That is high praise. Look, we've been trying to get Steven on here for a while now. We've been DMing each other for a while, man. It's just one of these things where it just really didn't link up, man. And I think right now, we're 52 days. Sam Cosme days away from better time, man. You're kind of going into this recruiting into out of summer into fall, Big 12 media days. Steve Sarkisian will be up there talking tomorrow. I know we'll probably see some videos about that. But yeah, I'm excited. But again, it's I have to manage my expectations. Sometimes you got to take those burn orange glasses off and kind of manage your expectations. Your thoughts, Jeremy? You had something to say?
Yeah, no, we're about to have that progression from talking about kids. We're talking all recruiting right the first 20 minutes of the show. And we're about to start talking about those position battles and that depth chart and how it looks in the fall with that first game against Louisiana and how it progresses to Oklahoma and then Iowa State and how we're going to try to win 10, 11, 12 ball games. And again, like Clint, I have to take my burnt orange glasses off all the time, but I think this roster has the ability to win 10 football games. Who do they not have the ability to beat? probably Iowa State and Ames with all those 20 of the 22 returning starters and a top 5 team in Oklahoma. But do I think they could be competitive in those football games? Absolutely. Do I think they'll get blown out? No. I think we'll have fourth quarter games in every single game we play. We just need to step on the gas with those teams that we have lost to before. Like, we should never be coming back from 15 points against Tech. We should never lose at home against TCU. Just my thoughts.
All right, let's talk expectations, and then we'll go back to barbecue. Y'all want to do that? You want to talk expectations? Because I feel like we need to talk expectations with the comments with the talk we just had. Let's talk expectations. I'm going to ask you, each one of you, probably what your top 3 expectations, and if you're still somebody else's, you got to come up with one off the top of your head. We'll start with our guest, Stephen. Give us what your expectation management on
top 3
this year. Yeah, 3 of them.
All my fingers look at you.
Yeah.
So I expect the quarterback position to be productive, regardless of who's in there. And you guys did a wonderful job in terms of the quarterback competition video. And yesterday I called him Casey Carden, Hudson Thompson, and then that's kind of my joke on the room, because I just think that with what Steve Sarkisian, the one thing that's a given, if you want to question his record as a head coach, go ahead. If you want to question him coaching, Texas or whatever, go ahead. You can't question his resume with quarterbacks. I've never seen him have poor quarterback performance. That's just me. Please correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, if I'm off base there. So I expect the quarterbacks to be good. Now, if they're great, we're having a different conversation. But I expect them off the bat to be good. And it's going to be a quarterback-friendly offense. Homer and I, we talked about play action, more quarterback-friendly bootleg, all sorts of things just to get the ball in an easier space to your playmakers. So that's number 1. Number 2, I expect, and hear me out here, I expect less nonsense on the sidelines in regards to delay of game penalties off of kickoffs. And I'm going to continue to say that until I see it. But I expect more common sense approaches to when we're going to go for it, or trick plays, things of that sort. Better game management, I should say. If I'm Chris Del Conte and I was looking to hire a coach and make a move, that would be one of the questions or one of the things I would want to address up front that really, really was a setback under not just Tom Herman, but also Charlie Strong. And then the third thing I expect is to have a competent secondary. I think you have a whole bunch of people back there that have played football for you and played a lot of snaps. Maybe not under this group, but they've played a lot, in terms of seeing a lot within the conference. I don't see as good, we're talking about the all Big 12 list, the kid from Texas Tech and Marvin Mims and Hutchinson from Iowa State. I don't see those same monsters at receiver, at least not yet, that I used to see a few years back, where it was just like, oh my God, how are we going to stop Justin Blackman and all these people, right? Like, I don't see those kind of freaks in the conference where we can't guard anybody. So my 3 would be the quarterback, game management, and my secondary just being competent.
I want to talk about the secondary real quick, because I was actually looking at the what I consider 2 deep, 3 deep when you're looking at the secondary, and your youngest guy on the secondary would be Jaron Thompson, who's a true sophomore. Because if you go look at it, you're talking about Jameson, senior, BJ Foster, senior, Josh Thompson, redshirt senior, Chris Adamora, junior, Anthony Cook, who's probably going to be backing him up, senior, Darian Dunn, graduate transfer, Schooler, graduate transfer, and then probably J.D. Coffey somewhere there as a true freshman, and then obviously Tyler Owens as a junior, and then so on and so forth.
BJ Foster too.
Yeah, it's there's no youth there. If you look at it, there's really no youth on that defensive backfield. So defensive secondary. Jeremy, your 3 expectation or what you expect.
I kind of covered one already. Win the ones you're supposed to win. Like, win those ball games. When we talk about top 5 blue chip ratio with the roster that we had. We just talked about the coaching staff. I just covered every defensive coach, minus Terry Joseph and Blake Gideon, and our thoughts about how good they are and how good this roster is. Win the ones you're supposed to win. The best players will play. It will be a meritocracy. If you're not producing in practice or in the game, you'll come off the field and the next guy will take your spot. You got to get better every play, possession, quarter, half, and game. And I just want to see a natural progression between play to play. Like Steven said, you can't keep continuing to make the same mistakes over and over again and be on the football field. And then the last one is just don't make the same mistakes week to week. Like, you have to play best players. Best players have to produce, and they can't make mistakes. And if you get your level of football to that, then I think we can compete for a Big 12 championship. But all those things have to go well. You can't, like I say, you can't flounder against Tech, can't flounder against TCU. Those games you're supposed to win. Are they going to be tough games? Absolutely. Have we always played close to the vest? I think you talked about this, Stephen, with we never blow anybody out. Every game is nip and tuck till the fourth quarter, and I think this season – hopefully it's not like that, but I could definitely see a replay of that because that's what these kids are used to. And again, they're going into new systems both on the offensive and defensive side of the ball. But
Jeremy, real quick thing before Clint goes. I said this on a podcast I did with some OU buddies. I will not say the name of their podcast just to throw some shade at them. But if you are sweating bullets against Kansas, I never want to hear all gas, no brakes ever again. Don't tell me all gas, no brakes. And we're over here, sweating bullets against teams that we have no business. That's what that's all about. So I'll pass it over to Clint.
So mine's really statistics driven. I'm gonna give you some stats here. 6.2%. The Texas offense took care of the football in 2020, throwing 5 interceptions and losing 4 fumbles across 146 drives. That's crazy. That's 6.2% of possessions ending in turnovers was the best rate in the Big 12 and ranked 5th in the country. Right, 5th in the country. Unfortunately, our total turnover was +9. What I see is an extension of that. I think we're going to get a whole bunch of turnovers under Pete Kwiatkowski, and I think we're going to continue with Casey Thompson, who we figure is probably going to be the quarterback when all this is over. Well, I figure it's probably going to be the quarterback after all this is over with. Is going to take care of the ball. They're going to handle the ball. So I definitely want to see expectations for me is to increase that +9 turnover from the 2020 season. Again, we're going to talk stats. I'm a defensive guy. I think last year we gave up 28.5 points per game. I think in the last 10 years, 5-6 years, I'd have to look back at Pete Kwiatkowski hasn't given up over 20 points in so many games over so many years. I want to get that 28 down to 21. That's what I expect from the defense. And as you can see, all mine's defense, and I want to see that defensive line kick everybody's ass each and every week because that's where you win football games in college football is up front. I want to see that offensive line do what they're supposed to under Kyle Flood, and I definitely want to see that defensive line with these guys that transferred in and the guys we have in Keandre Coburn, Snacks, and Devondre Sweat, and Moro Ojomo, and the list goes on and on, Alfred Collins, and so on and so forth. I want to see those big guys eat, and eat some more. So there's my expectations, man.
Quickest way to the college football playoffs. I've said this on the channel for years. The quickest way, if you're not currently making the college football playoffs, you're not in contention, the quickest way to come back is your defensive line, in my opinion. I watch Alabama via their defensive line. They went on that streak. Shout out to Roundtable Sports. They had tweeted this about a week ago. They went on a streak like 16, 17 straight games, or I think it was maybe longer than that, but it was over the 2016, 2017 season where they were just creating non-offensive touchdowns. Excuse me. And a lot of that was due to pressure. A lot of that was due to forced fumbles and guys that were just controlling and manhandling the line of scrimmage. You look at Clemson. When Clemson broke through, Cleveland Farrell, Christian Wilkins, like all these dudes that were like first-round picks on the defensive line, that's how you turn around your fortune, in my opinion, the fastest way.
Absolutely.
Yeah, front seven.
Absolutely. Front seven. Go look at Texas A&M. Go look at Texas A&M and what they've been able to do over the last couple of years, getting these guys. Same thing with Oklahoma. If you go look at Oklahoma's front seven, what they've been able to do in turning their defense around, it's all about that front seven. Be able to eat up blocks and get to the quarterback and play really up front because the way you play up front is going to impact the way you're talking about, Stephen, with that back end and our defensive backs and how they play. Question here from Kobe Harris. I think it's a really good question. Okay, every week I see folks talking about Tyler Owens, Ojimo, BJ, and the list goes on and on and on. What are y'all's thoughts on the impact of our twos, and who do you see getting more playing time from that group? Jeremy, I'll let you go first. Stephen, I'll let you think about it.
So currently on our depth chart that Clint built for us a couple of weeks ago, we have Devondre Sweat backing up Keandre Coburn. I think those two are going to get as many snaps. I think they're going to get 50-50 on the snaps because I love T. Sweat's speed off his quick twitch, speed off the rush. He can get back there and make sacks. Probably Prince Dorba at Jack. I see him coming in and making an impact. We definitely saw him step up in the spring game. And then it depends on who you have in middle. I think Adele Adeyewale could come back and make plays. I think David Bennett could come back and make plays. And then you're talking probably whoever's the BJ Foster, Brendan Schooler backup is probably going to get a lot of play as well. Just my thoughts on the defensive side of football, because that seems to be what he's asking.
I like Ojimo. He was one of the best players, if not the best player we saw outside of Bijan Robinson in the spring game. He had moments last year with what he was being asked to do, and I think he's actually playing a position that's better for him. And I think all these guys. So to the point about the defensive line, right? Think about all the two names you just mentioned in Coburn and Sweat. I think it benefits both of them sharing the snaps like that. I like my big boys being fresh and causing havoc. That's Alabama had whole waves of dudes coming in, right? That were
we used to too.
And so you look at, Alfred Collins, Ojimo, Vernon Broughton, these brothers staying fresh and being able to play and rotating all of them. I think they'll be able to make everybody's job easier, because for me, if I'm confident about the experience I have in the secondary, I'm more so like, I actually feel like I can stop the run. I feel confident about that based upon my guys. Where I'm concerned is, can I generate a pass rush without, blitzing every play, essentially? Can I generate a pass rush from my front four? What am I going to get from Ray Thornton? So with those twos, to Colby's question, people like Ojimo who can come in there as a fresh body and not just fill the gap properly and do what the coach asked, but make something happen. I'm looking more of the guys up front, the Vernon Broughtons and the Ojimos, to really have an impact.
Yeah, I'm an Ojimo guy. He was my breakout player for this year. And again, people don't realize that he was 17 years old when he came into the University of Texas. And we talked about it, I think, on our last live, because I wanted to bring it up. 247 did a spot, I think in 2019, they did an article on him. He said he's the best 17-year-old football player in the nation. Imagine if he would have been in that next class. He probably would have been a top 5-star coming out in that 2020 class, because he'd have been at his age group. You got to think about it. DeMarvin Lill's a 21-year-old sophomore at Texas A&M, right? Ojimo's a 19-year-old junior at the University of Texas. To me, there's a maturity level between 21 and 19 years old, and be able to fit into your body and do the things that grown men do at that age. And I think Ojimo is at that particular point, being 19-year-old junior, been playing since he was 17 years old. To me, he is your breakout player on the defense side of the ball. Y'all wait for more Ojimo. I'm telling y'all, he is the guy. My second guy, go ahead, Jeremy.
I just want to mention why I didn't pick Moro Ojimo is because when Clint's so fired up about it, when we put together our two deep, Moro Ojomo's a starter. So when the question was asked about twos, he was not in the twos section. So Clinton has him starting at the 3 alongside Keandre Coburn, and their backups being T. Sweat and Alfred Collins currently. He thinks he did enough in the spring game to earn that starting spot come this fall, and that's why I didn't put him with the twos, because when we came together and decided our 22 guys, 11 on offense, 11 on defense, Moro's a starter.
He's a starter. He's definitely a starter on this piece of paper.
Loves him.
Yeah. So my second guy, I'm going.
Meritocracy.
Meritocracy. It's it. And again, I think that's that expectation. You're talking about expectations is not on the defense side of the ball. On the offensive side of the ball is the rotations, man. They got to go away. The rotations got to go away altogether. My expectation is that the same guys, as I go to PFF on Sunday to write content for Monday, that the snaps are not. You'll have 45 people on the snap card. That is crazy. Like, it was like, Bijan Robinson, 15 carries, Roshan Johnson, 15 carries, Sam Ellinger, it just kept going on and on and on. And you had like 60 people that got snaps. That stuff's got to go away. You would think it's got to go away. Brings up a point, though. You have an issue, I think, right now. Jordan Whittington or Xavier Worthy?
Well, meritocracy. And I do think Jordan Whittington, actually both players. Let me start here. Jordan Whittington, we did see him moving all over the place. He wasn't just isolated to the slot. So to your point about the whole musical chairs and a whole bunch of people playing, it was kind of like pre-AAU days where it's like, hey, you have to play the first and second quarter, and he has to play the third quarter, and he has to play the fourth quarter. Like, it was already like predetermined or something. Like, it was weird. But with guys like Jordan Whittington being able to have that positional versatility, now you're going to see different people on the field, same group, but maybe mixing and matching. Xavier Worthy, that's where all the buzz is this week, right? He's been electric in camp. He's as good as advertised. He's as fast as advertised. You see the film from high school. He's got that California Deshaun Jackson type speed, and it's exciting. It's intoxicating because we haven't seen that with that quick twitch in a long time in the context of our offense. I think it's excellent for him to have an opportunity to get on the field right away, because I think he'll be more isolated to the slot, though, than, say, a Jordan Whittington because of his body and the fact trying to get off press coverage. It's going to be a lot to ask Xavier Worthy to go outside and go against some of the grown man corners. But if you keep him inside, like you look at his tape, right? He's way off the line of scrimmage, and he's getting a running start and just flying all over the place. So, Jeremy, please chime in.
Yeah, please.
Two-way go. So two-way go, like you're talking about Worthy. He creates mismatches when he's in the slot because he's got two ways he can go. If you got him against the boundary, that's the second defender. And then I want to talk about how you talked about the snaps were predetermined. It reminds me of when I was coaching my kids' U6 soccer team, and every kid had to play 50% of the game. And so you divided your roster up like, so these kids, so I don't have a weak unit or a strong unit. I'm going to put these guys with these guys and push them out on the field. That way we're always kind of even keel. That's exactly the way it felt. Not the best players will play. And that's what I said. The best players will play. That's an expectation to mine. If they're tired, they need to come off the football. And that's another thing that tells me is that you know your roster. What are your guys good at? Down and distance matters. Like, how can I put my best 11 on the field on defense when I need to stop the run, as you talked about earlier, or I need to stop a 3rd and 4 on a certain hash mark? Because like you said, I got to create rush from the backside of my front 7. Like, knowing your roster and what they're good at and putting them in positions to succeed is what I think this coaching staff has the ability to do.
Jeremy, the counter to that too is when you don't know your roster and you're playing that predetermined game, negative recruiting. Yeah. Because Oklahoma, all these schools that are going for the same kids, they're like, bro, how many snaps are you even going to get at Texas? Look at our guys. Look at because the snaps go into the numbers.
Yeah.
We're over here talking about, well, how come it's like almost every other year that we may or may not have somebody get 1,000 yards? Because we don't even know when they're going to be on the field. So like they got to be on the field to get the numbers. They kind of, not a chicken or egg situation here. So
back to your soccer point, man. It's like intramural softball. You have that guy that really can't hit the ball or play the infield or the outfield. You kind of put him at catcher, but you got to say, hey, no, hold on real quick. I'm gonna put you in like an hour and 15 minutes to an hour and a half game. You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, I've got coach, bring me in, put me in. No, it's like I can't do that right now. We'll put you in when we know we have a dominant lead. But going back to really what we're talking about, Jordan Whittington. Really, Keelan Robinson is another one. Keelan Robinson, yep. Xavier Worthy. To me, I went back and we talked about this on the prep a little bit last night. Is I went back and watched Alabama versus Ohio State. I went back and watched Alabama versus Texas A&M. Sarkisian put these guys in a wash. And it's because he knows how to match up guys. How does Devontae Smith get on Borland, linebacker from Ohio State, across the middle for a touchdown in a national championship game? It's timing and place and scheme, man. I don't care if he has a 3-star to play with or a 4-star to play with. You can have all the 5 stars you want to on that defense. But if I put a guy that's as fast as Xavier Worthy on a linebacker, I don't care what that linebacker is rated at, because I promise you this, he can't cover him. And I think that's what Steve Sarkisian knows how to do, man. It's all about scheme, man. It's all about putting his guys in those positions to be able to make those plays when it's time to make those plays, man. Go back and watch that Alabama Ohio State game again. The problem is you can't find the full. You can't find the entire game on YouTube, man. I was having to watch clips and stuff, but man, it's he put those guys in a wash, man. It was bad, really, really bad. So, all right, I got a $5 super chat here from Scott Sheridan. Appreciate it, man. Hook 'em, brother. Hook 'em. Scott Sheridan, he's all about those things, man. So we definitely appreciate it.
He's our BMD.
He's our big money donor
on Texas Football Talk for sure.
All right. Did Ben Davis break his foot? If so, should we go after Alec Bryant, edge player from Virginia Tech? It's too late at this particular one. I don't know. Is Alec Bryant in the transfer portal, and did he make it before September or July 1st? I'm not sure, gentlemen.
I'll rely on the comments there. I'm not versed on if Bryant's in the portal. The Ben Davis news was reported. I believe it's 6 to 8 week injury. Right. that was reported. So with that news, that does take us, because we were expecting Ben Davis to play edge and factor in guys like Agofo and Ray Thornton, all these different pieces, right? So I think that kind of leads me to my guy Jatavian Sanders and the interesting discourse that is happening right now all over social media, and I'm sure all over message boards about, hey, is this an opportunity for him to come in and get some snaps? Or do we play him on offense and try to make him Kyle Pitts? Like, what are y'all's thoughts there?
Jeremy, I'll let you go first. This is your baby.
I think you got a Dallas Texas showdown. I think you got Prince Storba versus Jatavian Sanders in the summer with Ben Davis being out to see who fills that role. Like you, I've been a Jatavian Sanders to defense my whole time we've been doing this podcast, only because I watched a ton of film with him, and it's hard when you see him make those one-handed catches in the corner of the end zone against diminutive defensive backs. His talent is insurmountable, but I think he would make the biggest impact currently, and I felt like long-term on the defensive side of football. But I think Prince Storba has a lot to be desired too. Like, he's a high 4-star, high 5-star at Highland Park, who we saw a lot of in the spring game. So we'll see. But I think it's those two guys are going to be fine for snaps in the fall, and I think they'll be fine for – because 6 to 8 weeks sends us to right at the start of the season, or maybe right after the first or second non-conference game. So I don't think Ben Davis is going to miss any conference football. I'd have to check the calendar and scroll down the weeks.
I feel terrible. I feel terrible for him, by the way, because he's been in college since 2016, I think. And you're coming here, fresh start. You're a 5-star, number 1 inside linebacker, I believe. At least according to when he came out. That's a really, really, no pun intended, that's a tough break for Ben Davis. So wishing him a speedy recovery and being able to pick up, because there's so many people that are going to be in the room where they're trying to figure out who are these guys. You guys are talking about Prince Storba, who's a forgotten name. I didn't even mention him, in the names I threw out there, but he showed up in the spring game, and he's a guy I liked when he came out of Highland Park, and his makeup and his development that I think he could push a Ray Thornton, to be honest with you. I think he has natural pass rushing gifts. The thing is experience. So, I mean, and can he play the run consistently? But I also think PK could put him in a position where he may not get exploited like that. So it's going to be really, really interesting. Clint, I want to get your take on the Jatavian Sanders.
Yeah, so Jatavian. So when you're talking about Jatavian Sanders, you're talking about, to me, it's more it's the timeliness of when he plays versus where does he play and so on and so forth. I think, to me, I think he's gonna go into that tight end room. But I think the biggest piece is if you need a pass rush in the second quarter, third and long, you're going to see Jatavian Sanders into the field. I think that's the way it's going to work. I think I don't see him coming in day one. Really, he didn't come in during spring. You're talking about this doing summer, going straight into fall, because he wasn't here as an early enrollee. What does he know? How fast does he learn it? And so on and so forth. Is the talent there? Absolutely the talent there. But does he learn the defense? So I think a lot of it comes down to timeliness of when he plays. To me, put people in positions to succeed. And that, to me, that's Jatavian Sanders, a one-hand catch guy down towards the red zone. And he's a guy when it's third and long, you bring him in there in specific opportunities to rush the passer. That's where I see him at. At least the first couple of weeks, man. Maybe further when it gets down the road, but yeah.
My only thoughts are the tight end room is so, I feel like it's very, very deep. Watching Juan Davis come to campus and play real well, watching Gunnar Helm come to campus and play real well. You got Kay Brewer, who's coming back for his senior season. You got Jared Wiley. I just don't know that the bang is for the buck, and I don't think he can beat Deshaun Jameson. When Deshaun Jameson came to campus, he was a defensive back, but we were full in the defensive back room when we moved him to slot receiver. I don't know that you could do that with Jatavian Sanders. Does he have the skill set? Absolutely. But I don't think you can hide him away in the tight end room Monday through Friday and expect him to go out and pass rushing plays on Saturday and be able to make plays. Just because, again, you're going to have to be in concert with your 3 technique or your 1 technique. And I think with PK's system, it's a lot more complex than just run on the outside of your defensive end and take up the 2 gaps when you're a defensive tackle or a 3 technique. So I just don't know if you could stow him away in the tight end room Monday through Friday and then ask him to come out and play pass rush on Saturday.
I want to piggyback on that point. At some point, he's going to have to make a decision, hopefully in combination with the staff, but playing both ways, if you're a corner to receiver, body comp wise, you're not really going to change too much depending on, what you're being asked to do as a DB. But Your goal is to be fast, be agile, those type of things. Because of the type of tight end, and I hesitate to even call him a tight end. I look at it like a pass catcher. He's one of my pass catchers. So, but if I want him to say both ways, and I'm asking him to be a pass catcher, but I also want him to rush the edge. But eventually he's got to bulk up. Like, I don't know what his weight is right now, if he's like 225, 230, whatever he is. But eventually, like, if I'm looking at what his NFL body's going to be, or his long-term body composition is going to be, if he's going to be a defensive end or a linebacker or outside linebacker, he's going to be a big boy. And he's not going to be able to high point. He's a special athlete. That's why he's a 5-star. But the way he was able to, you see him high pointing the football deep downfield and contorting his body and making one-handed catches, the dexterity, the athleticism, it's incredible. But even a guy like a Kyle Pitts, I think the highest he got in weight was like 240 or 245. Like the body, his body, he's a slimmer guy because he's got to be able, you look at Jatavian Sanders, even at Denton Ryan, he was catching balls. I saw him catching shallow crosses and running after the catch as well. So what type of football player do you even want to be? Because you being one of an elite pass catcher like that and being an edge rusher, I don't see those two things gelling long term. I think you can get away with it at the beginning, but eventually they're going to have to come to a road where they make a decision.
It's a good problem to have a 5-star player. You can't figure out where you want to put him at. Very good. That's a very good issue, man.
We're both Cowboy fans, and DeMarcus Lawrence, I want to say, is not running around 235. Like you said, Steven, there's got to be 35 pounds of muscle put on that frame in the next 4 years. And I think Torrey Beckton with this versatile, strength and conditioning program could definitely do that. But like you said, the decision's got to be made sooner than later where he's going to go so he can continue to develop and be that first-day draft pick that you're looking for in this program and for the kid himself.
Expectations as well, guys. To finish the Jatavian Sanders point, as long as he's in communication with his position coaches and ultimately Steve Sarkisian, and it aligns with what he was told across the recruitment, not even because his recruitment spans into Tom Herman as well, but he's like, hey, I stood solid. He stood solid for a reason. They've told him something. They've told him they're going to give him a piece of something. You don't just stay solid during a coaching change when you're that level of recruit without there being some sort of assurance that you're going to get what you want to get out of your experience there. So as long as the communication is fair, but they also say, look, what's best for the team, we have injuries right here, we're short at this position, we need to get your ass on the field, you need to come over here to this room. Like, it is what it is, bro. And we know you can be our best guy, then I think that will be understood across the board.
Absolutely, man. All right, William Curlin, $8 super chat, man. Appreciate it, dude. Really, really appreciate all these super chats tonight, man. Would love to see us in some 2 running back sets. What do y'all think the offense looks like this year? I already have my thoughts, man.
You got to have some 2-back sets, especially with, and I think somebody else was talking about some of the 21 personnel that you can do with Keelan Robinson and Bijan Robinson. But what I love about it is everybody can catch the football. Bijan we've seen him split out. Now, they didn't take a whole lot of advantage of it, but I know he can do it. He can do anything. Roschon Johnson, I haven't seen him drop a pass. And for somebody who changed positions, natural athlete, I know he can do it. And then Keelan Robinson, he can line up in the slot and do some things and get mismatches on linebackers. So it's not even just having 2 running backs on the field. It's having 2 offensive weapons on the field that can do anything. That doesn't necessarily mean I got to run the football. So that's what I'm excited about.
Absolutely, because it's down and distance dictated to me, and it's personnel dictated. Like, who can I exploit on the defensive side of the football, play to play, and that would be. I see more 2-back sets, and I know Dorian's in here. Dorian Johnson's Roschon's older brother, but I see more 2-back sets with Keelan and Bijan than I do with Roschon. But Roschon's skill set, like you said, Stephen, is phenomenal. Like, to me, he's my modern day Cody Johnson. If I need 2 yards in a cloud of dust, I'm handing the ball to Roschon Johnson because I know once he gets the football, he's full steam ahead, 100 miles an hour, and with no regard for his body or anybody else's. But yeah, just my thoughts on a 2 running back set. You'll definitely see it, but it'll be based on down and distance and matchups.
All right, my thoughts, man. We're going to look a lot like Iowa State did last year, and we're going to hand the ball off to Bijan Robinson a whole lot with 2 tight ends in the game. And I think that's why we have to go up right now. Until I think obviously the RPO is a big deal, but Steve Sarkisian is all about making the running back the biggest part of his game. And that's what Bijan Robinson is going to do. He's got Roshan Johnson, Keelan Robinson, all those guys, man. I think you're going to see a lot of two tight end, 12 personnel packages, running back and run the ball down their throat until you have a nice play action pass. And you got Xavier Worthy or Jordan Whittington or Amiri or whoever else got across on a post route man headed towards the end zone. So I think that's where that's honestly, I think that's where and I think you have to exploit some of these defenses that you have in the Big 12 that are smaller too. And I think the way you do that is you just run. By the fourth quarter, they can't hold up against these big offensive linemen anymore. The same thing with these tight ends against some of these smaller defensive backs that we have in the Big 12, especially if you have six defensive backs on the field. You have a thought, Stephen?
That alone makes your offense quarterback friendly, right?
Yep.
You have all that run going on. Everything is complementary. Everything feeds the other, especially when you know what you're doing. I'm looking forward. People have been studying what Alabama did and what Sark did. I'm looking forward to being a step ahead the way Lincoln Riley has been. Let's be real, guys. And when you go to these coaching clinics and people see when he gets his hand on a quarterback year in, year out, what are they doing schematically? How are they always a step ahead? I'm excited when we have these coaching clinics come out after the season and it's Texas on the board. And it's no longer we're trying to beat people with because we have better athletes, but it's also the brain. It's the schematic things of the operation. That's what I'm excited to see. And with these running backs, the creativity there, because you don't see that too often in college football right now. You see it more in the NFL with how people are utilizing multiple running backs. Cleveland Browns do it very well with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt and some of these where everybody's able to eat. But at the college level, I'm excited because Steve Sarkisian, having NFL experience, he's worked with different types of personnel. He's been put in every type of situation. So I'm excited to see how that plays out for Texas.
We got a basketball question in here. Y'all ready for this one?
Go ahead. I just want to say that he's 100% right. Knowing your personnel and the athletic scheme that fits them makes 3-point wins 3 touchdown wins. Like you said, you can't just throw your helmet out there and say we're the best athletes on the football field. That's how you win games, by 3 points. The moment you figure out how to use those athletes, those 3-point wins become 3 touchdown wins, and that's where we need to get.
I think it's disrespectful. I think it's disrespectful to your opponent when you think you can just show up because you had good conditioning and you're stronger and you're toughness, but you're saving all your mental energy and scheme to get ready for LSU or to get ready for USC, and you're overlooking people because you have all this mental energy over here. But yeah, your players are training hard. There's no doubt people are practicing hard, but we only see the scheme rolled out when we need it. No, that needs to be a part of you. You got to scheme up Louisiana and the game after that. Scheme them up. That's what I need to see.
But 2 things. I think that's the difference between this coaching staff and the previous coaching staffs. These guys are winners, man. They come from championship pedigree. There's not one coach that I can think of off the top of my head that has not played in a college football playoff minus Blake Gideon on the staff.
We said that.
Minus maybe choked. And I think when we went through those coaches. So I think these guys know what it takes to win. And I think they're going to, it's not a roll your helmet out there every day. You're not seeing that during the spring game where, players come off the field, man. And the first thing they do, man, is these coaches are Kyle Flood's grabbing one of these guys, man, on the I think it was the visitor side, grabbing one of these guys, man, and he's getting his earpiece. Like, hey, dude, I don't care if it's a spring game or not, man. We're not doing this. This is not how we win these games. And I forgot what I was going to say, the second piece of it. Man, I never forgot. That's crazy.
I think you were going to throw up Ramey and Jones question, though. I think you were
I was going to throw up Ramey. Here we go. Y'all see it? Here we go. Just see 199 super chat. Here we go. Talk a little basketball. Do Jones and Ramey get along this year? Hook them. All right. What we got?
Can I go?
You want to go first? Yes, you can.
Okay, because I'm y'all know how much I love Texas basketball, and the Beard era is off to a sensational start with how he's put this roster together and his philosophy on the transfer portal. In regards to Andrew Jones and Courtney Ramey, I'm glad both these brothers are back, and I think they understood, probably Courtney Ramey more than Andrew Jones, that really messed up the end of their season. They went on to win the Big 12 tournament, but Courtney Ramey wasn't there. he wasn't. And Andrew Jones is like more of an alpha, so he's gonna hoop regardless. But Courtney Ramey, I think him coming back, I'm actually proud of the brother, and I think that's courageous to write some of those things where he knows they came up short. And I know, the NBA gave them feedback and whatnot as well, but because at that point in the season, we were really, really starting to gain some momentum, and his game went off a cliff after that fight. And then we lose that basketball game, and then you lose in the NCAA tournament, and he he couldn't even really be on the floor against Abilene Christian. That's where he was one of our top 3 players that was consistent. So him coming back, them working that out, and knowing also jobs are on the line, Texas basketball guys, because there's only one basketball. And to the point about musical chairs, not everybody gonna play on that roster. Chris Beard filled that thing up, so he's gonna cars coming for a visit. The ball may not even be in your hands. So that's what I have to say on that particular piece.
Go ahead, Jeremy.
Again, like you said, meritocracy. He's bringing in Devin Askew. I think Marcus Cars looks pretty good. But these were 2 isolated incidents. Ramey and Jones were an isolated incident. Greg Brown leaving the floor was an isolated incident. And I would rather them have passion and get after it if you think your brother's letting you down and be able to tell him that. Now, did it manifest into something that Courtney Ramey couldn't come back from? Unfortunately, yes, it did last year, but it was a lesson learned, I think. Like you're saying, Steven, it was probably a hard pill to swallow for a guy who I consider an alpha dog. Like, I love his defensive tenacity, and I love how early in the season he would take the ball to the basket. But I think he lost some of that when he was questioned about his ability to be a teammate. And so I think lessons are learned. I think they're going to come out. And like you said, this team is stacked. Jesse is saying this team is stacked. This is truly all gas, no brakes. What do we say? He didn't find a place to live until the first 10 weeks he was in Austin because he was recruiting the transfer portal. He is on fire. And I'm excited about this Texas basketball season.
I think the best way to put it is the way, Steven, you talk about these guys might not even see the floor. With the talent that's on the team right now, for someone to come back, that might not got a good draft grade to come back to Texas after you'd seen what had been recruited to your school while you were trying to make a decision, it is a big deal. But at the same time, you can only put 5 people on the court at one time. You may play up to 7 or 8 people through the entire season. The chances of these guys seeing the floor may be null and void, depending on who else they bring into this. But hey, it is what it is. I think they currently have us ranked in the top 3 in the preseason poll or something. Some say 5, which is crazy, unheard of. Thinking where we came back, where we're at. How many guys decided to enter the NBA draft, and currently where we're at with the
they're adding all conference type players to the roster, like people that have already been all conference or people that were, in some cases, 18-10, right? Like real that have been putting up numbers in college basketball, but we're just looking for a home and understand that Chris Beard at Texas Tech has been really great with transfer portal people. That's his thing. He's like, I look at college basketball in 1-year increments. And that's the business that he understands that Roy Williams and Coach K don't want to be a part of anymore, is that constant turnover. But Chris Beard is like, that's the business that he was in to build up tech so fast. So it's perspective there.
NBA free agency with no salary cap. That's what Chris Beard looks at each season of basketball. And Clint, you said 7-8 deep. I think this team is 9, 10, 11 deep. And you need to take advantage of that roster, the depth in this roster all year long. If you're playing 7-8 guys a game, then you're selling this roster short. Because like Steven was saying, you got 19, 20-point guys, like 3 or 4 deep on this roster with Dylan Disu, the kid from Massachusetts, the kid from Utah. And then you talk about Marcus Carr. He's another 20-point per game guy. I think you could create depth and
right, but I think it comes.
Andrew Jones, was about 15 points per game coming back.
Yeah.
Ramey's around 13, 12 points per game. That's a lot of ammunition there.
But I think it's minutes. Not how many people they play, but how many minutes you're going to get per game.
Sure.
Because again, how many guys are going to come off the court? Obviously, there's only so many minutes you're going to play in a game. So really, I think it comes down to minutes, not people he plays, but what it comes down to is really minutes. Tracy Williams, aloha to you, man. That dude is, in Hawaii. Appreciate that he got on to it. I think 3:30, maybe, I don't know, 2:30. Jeremy, do the math over there. What time is it?
2:59, about to be 3. It's 5 hours
Yeah,
behind.
about 3 o'clock over there, man. He says we need to get Clint something Texas to put in the background. Just saying. All right, Tracy.
Can we
get something? Send it to me
on what Tracy does? Tracy is an official. He's a referee. And when I get angry about and I call them zebras on Twitter, Tracy slides in immediately. I think he has like a little alert or a radar or something. But Tracy is out there working hard. He's a referee. I think he does football and basketball. He's constantly going to clinics. And in all seriousness, when I get upset about calls or things, he is always there to give me perspective on what it's like being an official and why did they call it this way, and not necessarily getting defensive, but more so educating me. So I'm thankful for my friendship with Tracy, and me and him get into it. We get into it about the refs because they're a little fraternity over there, but I'm thankful for what he does.
All right, final thoughts, man. We're about an hour right now, and I know we could probably. I've been drinking coffee and I got water over here. I got all kinds of stuff.
This was fun.
I'd probably do it for another hour, but I'd probably get in trouble by the wife, so we can't do that. So, last final thoughts, man. I'll start with you, Stephen, man, about tonight and going forward and expectations from a recruiting standpoint. You haven't had an opportunity to go watch Stephen's newest video he put out last night. It's specifically about that, man. Expectations in recruiting, what to expect now versus what to expect once the product gets on the field in here in less than about 52 days, man. So your thoughts, Stephen?
Final thoughts, first, thank you guys again for having me on. I'm glad we got to do this. And I'd love to do this again, either before the season starts or if we even do like a roundtable type of discussion. I think that'd be really, really cool. As a Cowboys fan, I see a lot of Cowboys YouTubers out there doing roundtables and stuff. And I'd love to do that with you guys and talk through this stuff as it goes along. But in terms of just final thoughts on the season and whatnot, we're coming off of COVID, of a COVID year. COVID's still out there. Make sure y'all take care of yourselves. But COVID year where we couldn't be in the stadium and everybody's wearing and all these protocols and whatnot. And just being excited September 4th and Steve Sarkisian 100% capacity and people being able to tailgate. Like, my channel's called Fanatic Perspective. You guys started your channel as fans. I'm excited for us. I'm excited for us to like get back to that. And I think that's a sense of normalcy and mental health, right? Like, that's a big part of our lives that was just taken away, that we always look forward to. I've grown up this way. So just being able to get out there and meet you guys and get to Campbell's William Field, DKR, and cheer on our guys and be a part of something special of a new regime. That's where I'm gonna leave it, guys. But I really appreciate y'all having me on.
All right, man. Hey, we appreciate you coming on tonight, man, Stephen. And I think you're right, man. I think getting back full capacity stadium, Bevo Boulevard, just the crowds are going to be wild, man, moving forward. New turf. We didn't even talk about the new turf, the new burnt orange end zones, which looks beautiful. People having panic attacks about the state of Texas and Longhorn underneath it. Go ahead, Stephen. That was crazy, man. That's crazy.
The two things that people love to talk about in the offseason, I got to make fun of us real quick, is the turf. And is Texas ever going to wear black jerseys or alternate jerseys? I love it. I love and poor Chris Del Conte gets it up with it constantly. When are we going to get alternate jerseys? All I love it. But that's what the offseason for.
Absolutely, man. Hey, yeah, we appreciate you coming on tonight, man, Stephen. You can find him at Fanatic Perspective on YouTube. 150 subscribers. Am I not wrong? About 150 subscribers.
We're right there
from 10,000. I can tell you how hard that is. Me and Jeremy hit 2,500 subscribers this week. This week, I think on Monday, right? On Monday, we hit 2,500 subscribers on YouTube, which is crazy to us to think about. I can't even imagine 7,500 more people following us on YouTube, which is crazy. So 150 subscribers from 10,000. So if you have not subscribed to Stephen's channel, Fanatic Perspective, please go over there. You'll be able to find bits and pieces, I think, Stephen, from this conversation on your channel as well.
We'll put some highlights over there as well. Thank you.
Yeah, so we'll get that to Stephen. But we appreciate it. Any last thoughts, Jeremy, before we go?
No. I mean, Stephen hit the nail on the head. The same things that I was looking forward to this year is the infrastructure. Like you said, Moody Coliseum's getting built. The South End Zone project's getting built. 100% capacity. Get out there. show up early, party, stay late. Like you said, protect yourself. COVID is still out there. But yeah, just the same things that he's fired up about. I share those same sentiments, and you can't get here soon enough.
All right, there's 121 people on here watching right now. Please hit that like button if you have not hit that like button. If you have not subscribed to our channel, please subscribe to our channel. You can find us on Twitter at Texas Football Talk, on Facebook at Texas Football Talk, and on Instagram at Texas Football Talk. We appreciate you listening as always, and hook 'em.
Hook 'em.